Let's talk about something that, well, is a bit terrifying. We've all been operating on a certain timeline for climate change. But what if that timeline is just plain wrong? A startling new analysis from the renowned scientist James Hansen suggests it is, and it all boils down to one critical number. This is the number, 2 degrees Celsius. For decades, this has been the guardrail, the absolute line in the sand that we are not supposed to cross. It's the upper limit of warming we've all been desperately trying to avoid. But here's the kicker. What if we're on track to blow past that line? Not in some distant future, not even by mid-century, but decades sooner than almost all mainstream models have been telling us. And that is the absolute core of Hansen's new forecast. A lot of scientific bodies have been pointing to maybe 2050 or even later for hitting that 2-degree mark. Hansen's work suggests, no, we're likely going to cross that threshold sometime in the 2030s. Okay, I know what you're thinking. How on earth is that possible? What could possibly be causing things to speed up so dramatically? To really get it, we have to follow the clues, almost like we're detectives in a climate investigation. And our first clue? It starts with a huge natural event that's brewing right now in the Pacific Ocean. So the first big clue is this incredibly powerful, totally natural cycle that's acting like a short-term booster rocket for global temperatures. And you've almost certainly heard its name, El Niño. This whole system is officially called the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO for short. Just think of it like the planet's biggest driver of temperature mood swings from one year to the next. It's this massive heat engine in the Pacific, and it really only has 2 main settings. So it has these 2 opposite phases. For the last few years, we've been in a La Niña, which has the slight cooling effect. It's kind of like the planet had its air conditioning running on low, but that's over. We are now flipping the switch to El Niño, the warm phase, which is basically turning off the AC and cranking up the thermostat. And the effect of flipping that switch is going to be immediate. Hansen's analysis projects that this coming El Niño, even just a moderate one, is probably going to push our 12-month global average temperature up to a record-shattering 1.7 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And that could happen by early 2027. But here's the critical thing to understand. El Niño is just the trigger. To get the real story, we have to look at what's been building up in the background all this time. Right, so this is super important. El Niño isn't the root cause of the long-term problem. It's more like a giant spotlight that's about to reveal just how much hotter the background state of the planet has become. The real culprits are 2 hidden factors that have basically put climate change into overdrive. So let's just look at the data. First, let's set a baseline. From 1970 all the way to 2010, the planet was warming up at a rate of about 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade. That was kind of our old normal. But look what happened after 2010. That rate has literally doubled to 0.36 degrees per decade. I mean, that's a massive jump. It's a really clear signal that something fundamental has changed in the Earth's whole energy balance. And if we zoom in even closer, just from 2015 to right now, the rate has climbed again to 0.41 degrees per decade. The acceleration is it's undeniable. And Hansen's work has identified 2 key reasons for this sudden speedup. So the 2 main drivers are 1, a reduction in these sun-blocking particles in our atmosphere, and 2, a really frightening realization that the Earth itself might be much, much more sensitive to our emissions than we originally thought. Okay, this first culprit is a total paradox. For decades, industrial pollution, especially sulfur dioxide, created these tiny particles called aerosols, and they actually reflected sunlight back into space, which had a temporary cooling effect. It was masking some of the warming. But now, as countries like China have cleaned up their air and new global rules have cut sulfur from shipping fuels, that artificial sunshade is disappearing. And while that's an incredible win for public health, it's also unmasking the true level of warming we've been causing all along. The second factor, and this one's even more concerning, is that the Earth's climate might just be more sensitive than a lot of our models assumed. The standard estimate has been about 3 degrees of warming if we double the CO2 in the atmosphere. Well, Hansen's data suggests it's actually closer to 4 degrees. And that means for every ton of CO2 we release, the warming response is significantly larger and faster than we were planning for. So, when you combine a faster underlying rate of warming with a big El Niño that's just getting started, what does our future actually look like? Well, this is the result. According to this new analysis, we cross that 1.5 degree threshold for good around 2026. Yeah, that soon. We hit the critical 2-degree mark around 2037. 2.5 degrees arrives around 2048, and we hit 3 degrees by 2060. These are not distant, abstract threats anymore. These are events that are set to happen within the lifetimes of most people watching this right now. Hansen uses this incredibly powerful and really counterintuitive metaphor to describe the situation we're in now. He calls it a horse race. It's a race between two things, the accelerating impacts of climate change and our collective response to it. But in this strange race, if you bet on the horse of inaction, of just letting climate change run wild, and that horse wins, you lose everything. It's a race we desperately, desperately need to lose.
So, with a forecast this bleak, it's totally natural to ask, is there any good news in here at all? Is there any hope?
Well, maybe. Hansen does offer this sliver of hope. He suggests that as the temperatures shoot up toward 2 degrees, the crisis will become so obvious, so completely undeniable, that this casual attitude that we can just adapt will finally dissolve. The sheer speed of the change may be the very thing that finally forces the kind of decisive action that's been missing for decades. In the end, this analysis isn't just a collection of data points, it's a profound warning. As Hansen himself puts it, his own forecast is a bet he would prefer to lose. And the question that leaves us with is, what are we willing to do to make sure that he does?